Alright, so for this video we are going to learn about three different techniques. One is annealing, one is the disc cutter, and then one is the dapping block. So we are going to start with the disc cutter, and I just have a few different examples of brass that we're going to look at. The disc cutter is going to cut perfect circles out of your metal so you don't have to cut them by hand with a jeweler's saw. So I'm starting with a 2 by 2 inch brass piece. And this is my disc cutter. So you'll see it's steel, it has different size circles, and then corresponding punches that fit inside those circles. So I'm going to need to unscrew the top to loosen the disc cutter so I can fit my metal inside. As you can see, it raises up as I loosen it. It is possible to loosen it too much, and then what happens is it pops apart like this. So you only want to loosen it just enough so you can fit your metal inside. It is an easy fix though if you do happen to unscrew it. Alright, so now I'm going to fit my metal in between the two pieces of steel in the corresponding size of the circle that I want to make. So I have to press down a little bit and then screw it shut so it doesn't move or wiggle. So that little edge is sticking out, but other than that it's not going to fall out. Then I take my corresponding punch, and I always want to be sure to use the correct side. I want the flat side that's sort of at an angle to do the cutting of the circle, not the beveled side. That will get stuck. So I press it down as far as it will go inside of the disc cutter, and then I want to hold it with my opposite hand while I take a brass mallet with my dominant hand and hit the punch hard a couple times to pop through the metal. You'll notice that it sort of sinks down, and then you can lift up the whole disc cutter and the punch comes out. So now I should have a perfectly cut circle that I didn't have to spend a lot of time cutting by hand. And I can do this, depending on my design, I can do this in different sizes. But then I unscrew it, take out that edge piece, put it back together, and set it up for the next person. So now I'm going to show you how to anneal this. Annealing, you need to go to the torch station. I'm going to anneal it to make it softer and malleable so I am able to bend it easily. So we're going to put it on the charcoal block. You could put it on the tripod as well. And I want my big torch tip. So you're going to notice it says 180-1 towards the top of the torch tip. So if it's already on there, you can leave it. You just want to make sure that it's nice and tight and not loose and that the gas is off. But just a reminder, if you want to change it, you have to loosen up that nut, pull it out, make sure the gas is off while you do this. And then to put a new one back on, you press down and then tighten it back up, making sure that's not loose. So I want to make sure that the vents are on as well. And I have a quenching bowl of water because I'm going to get my metal super hot. So I'm going to turn on my torch just a quarter turn so the gas is running. You'll hear it hissing, as you can remember. And then I'm going to take my striker with my flint and light that torch head. Okay, and just a reminder, you press down so that there is a spark, just like that. Okay, so now I'm going to try to get my metal as hot as possible. With the heat patina, obviously, you wanted just a little bit of heat. With this, you want it red hot. The hotter it gets, the more malleable it's going to be and the softer it is, so you can do a lot of cool forming and manipulating of your metal. So I'm going to bring it as close to that blue cone tip as possible, and as you can see, my metal is getting an orangey color and it's glowing. So I want that to be even across the surface of my metal, and then I can turn it off. And you'll see that it starts to dull a little bit and it's black with all that fire scale. But then I'm going to grab an appropriate tweezers. There's plenty of different options to grab it. Again, it's extremely hot. Put it in my quenching bowl of water. Once it's in the water, I can grab it with my hand. And now I need to put it into the pickle to get off of that fire scale. So make sure that you put it in the right pickle. This is a piece of brass, so I would not put it in the big pickle because I need that super pickle to keep it brass. Super pickle, again, has hydrogen peroxide added to it to make sure that your brass does not turn to copper. So I'm going to wait at least 5 minutes and then come back and check on it. Okay, so after all that fire scale is gone and my brass piece is back to brass, I'm going to take it out of the solution, again, not touching with my hands, but using a copper tongs. And then I'm going to rinse it in the sink to get that chemical off of it, both sides. Then I can touch it with my hand, and I put the tongs back by the pickle. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my workstation after I grab some paper towel, and I want to make sure that my metal is dry for this. It's harder if it's wet and you'll rust the materials, so just give it a little bit of a rub with the paper towel. Okay, so now we're going to use what's called the dapping block or the doming block, and there are different sizes that you're able to use. For this, because I have a larger piece or a larger circle, I'm going to try to find a circle that's a little bit bigger than what my piece of metal is, so it'll fit in there nicely. But again, you can decide. You have a lot of freedom as to what size you want to use for your metal to get a certain sort of design effect. So I like this one. I'm probably going to keep with the bigger one, like that one. Okay, so now I'm going to take the corresponding piece, or the dome, and it's sort of like the disc cutter in that I put the rounded part down, and I'll take a ball peen hammer, the flat side, and just sort of hammer it and move it around that shape to get the different texture that I want. So this is going to make a nice dome. Sometimes people, depending on their design, will make a sphere if they put two of these together. But it's a uniform way of making a rounded shape, as opposed to trying to manipulate it all by hand, like that. So now I could go back and sand it and file it and maybe solder it later. I could try a different circle if I felt I wanted more of an edge or a curve. You know, you have a lot of freedom for this tool. So I'm going to keep hammering it. I want it a little bit more dramatic. And every once in a while I just take my metal out and make sure that it's doing what I want it to do. So you could leave it as it is. It's like a little bowl, a little cap. Could be part of a piece of jewelry. You could put a flat piece of metal underneath it and solder it together if you wanted to. So lots of different options with the dapping and the disc cutter and annealing.